one of the things we like to say at Salesforce is like, look, anyone can become an architect, right? And with our cert, I really believe that's possible. You know, if you're an admin on our platform, understanding and taking our cert and becoming a solution architect is going to expand your sphere of influence, as well as the different ways that you get to practice your skills and help support the creation of new customer experiences.
That is Abraham David Lloyd, a director at Salesforce and the lead evangelist for the B2C Solution Architect program. I'm Josh Burke, your host for the Salesforce Developer Podcast, and here on the podcast, you'll hear stories and insights from developers for developers. Today, we sit down and talk with Abraham about that program and B2C solution architecture in general. And as usual, we start with his early years, which for Abraham began not technically with computers, but in the business of helping nightclubs get up and running.
When I first started, I didn't know programming, right? And so if I'm going to date myself, think about email addresses are just now starting to show up on business cards. Okay.
Yes.
And so there's companies say, hey, I want a website. You look like you're good at computers. One of the things I used to do for the nightclubs I worked at is I would design the inventory system, right? So understanding your liquor costs is a key component of club success. You have to understand, how much of your liquor is actually going to profit. We managed all this in a spreadsheet in Lotus 123, and it was something that I had written. And programming, like I said, I was a programmer as a kid growing up, so it was intuitive. And one day I had a coworker say, "Hey, I work for this company that does this thing, and you seem to know computers. Would you happen to know anything about like how to create a web page?" And I was like, "Well, no, but." Back then you would have to go to a bookstore and get a book. and so, I remember my first interview, I did a website for the club that I worked at as a demo and had it on a floppy disk. Right.
That's awesome.
And brought it in and was like, but then, it's like, well, hey, can you, do you have something that you could view this on? Do you have a Mac or a PC? And, you have to deal with all of the AV things. The AV things never go away. They never go away. But one of the things I love about Salesforce is we place value and priority in practicing empathy. Right. And when we think and talk about how to speak with customers, how to represent customers, how to champion customers, empathy is at the foundation of that. And I found that I wasn't the best programmer, but I could hear people and give them empathy and practice empathy with them, about the things that they wanted or why they wanted something or why the process of trying to build what they wanted was frustrating for them.
Gotcha.
And that's just been something that, I was doing it, but didn't know it. And so I didn't do it well. But as I've gotten older and matured and gotten more experience, empathy is so critical, especially today when you think about how the world is.
Yeah, totally. First of all, to also, because I'm delighted in the whole, you had to go buy a book in order to learn how to build web pages.
Man.
I have in my basement this just thick, long book, and the title is escaping me, but it's something like How to Build Pages for the World Wide Web.
Yes.
And I bought it, I think, like at a Barnes and Noble, and like over 20 some years ago, and the thing is invincible. Like it's survived water damage. It's survived. Like it's the thing that when we're moving, I'm like, oh, of course it's here. It's like that cat that ran away, but always comes back again. Like, yep, we're moving the book. It's coming with us. I don't know what to tell you. The thing is apparently permanent in time. I just don't know.
Yeah. Data models, right? Walden Books. That's where I used to go. Walden Books.
I think you're right. I think it was a Walden. Oh my God. I think it might have been Walden Books. Oh my God.
We're
awesome.
Tremendously dating ourselves now.
Totally. Okay. So let's bring it back to present. Talking about that empathy and your current skills. How would you describe your current role at Salesforce?
Goodness. So this is a dream job for me. All right. I am blessed with the opportunity to be in service to the architect community, within Salesforce, both internally with employees as well as within partners and, of course, customers. I'm the lead evangelist for a new certification that was just announced this previous month at DreamTX, the B2C Solution Architect Certification. And so this is a space I've probably spent the last 3 years of my career here at Salesforce in. Nice. And it's been a tremendous passion project of mine. I'd originally started working in our services team when I got hired about 4 years ago. After a year working in that team, my manager, Tasha Wilkins, had recommended a role for me that was opening up within the customer success group, working with customers. And part of the challenge of the way that we were in service to customers was customers would come to us with scenarios, use cases basically, and say, how would I do this? Or how do I do this? Right?
Yeah.
And it's very advisory, but the stories are, again, thinking about empathy. Our customers are trying to get things done that they need to grow their business and support their careers and, make their mortgage payments and get their bonus so that way they can go on vacation or pay for college. Yeah. And our focus was, multi-cloud experiences, right? Gotcha. So you think about how Salesforce has grown as a company. We've gone from being one platform to, upwards of 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on how you categorize products. And so our focus was, hey, if you want to integrate these products, what's the strategy? How would you do this? What data strategy do you need? How do you define what success looks like for a use case? And what we've done within the B2C Solution Architect program is operationalize a portion of that.
Do love that, framing it as actual empathy for them. Today, we're talking about a couple of things like B2C commerce and architecture in general. Talk to me a little bit, and maybe that kind of is a good follow-up too. Talk to me specifically, like would you describe the role of a solution architect to somebody?
So one of the things I love about our program and the investment that Salesforce has made in our program is that I feel like we really provide some clarity. Right. The title solution architect, I feel like, has been around over a decade, but it's one of those titles that when you see it, it's a little confusing, right? Like my wife, I love my wife, honey, I love you. But there's a cliche that my wife still says I'm in computers. Right. Because the title of solution architect, it just spans so wide. Right. Because you can, but that's what I love, honestly, that's what I love about the role is that it's so malleable and, you can choose to practice solution architecture within your career, as a developer, as a technologist, as a trusted advisor, as a program manager. When I think about solution architects, they typically practice 3 kinds of leadership, right? There's business leadership, there's delivery leadership, and there's technical leadership. And that's part of what we've distilled within our program, really thinking about what the job role is. And if you want to be an architect, I feel like today architect is too tightly coupled to technologist. Right? Where it's like, hey, I'm going to measure how good you are at architecture based on how good you are at technology. Yeah. But when you think about the technology landscape today, it's too complex. It's too wide. It's too deep. There's too much to really measure that way. Right. And so as a solution architects practice business leadership. And so what that means is that they emphasize business value, right? They emphasize business value and customer experiences. So experiences need to be frictionless. They need to be seamless. They need to generate transactional value for the customer. They need to generate transactional value for the consumer. They need to be able to generate strategic business value as well. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've learned from talking to architects, which I guess actually it really did kind of surprise me the first time I kept seeing it, talking about the business side of things, the number of technical architects or solution architects who are also MBAs and they have that deep understanding of the business. Like you yourself, were setting up nightclubs, right? Like you were involved in business even before you were involved in technology. Like how common is that with either a deep leaning to business or an overlap between the business and the technology?
I feel like it's more common now, and I feel like it's trending to be a requirement or table stakes, right? Because you have to. One of the best pieces of advice I got in my career early is the difference between business value and technical value, right? And how technical value, business value is what drives decisions, not technical value.
Gotcha.
And really kind of honing in on that. And I feel like that's one of the things that we do really well at Salesforce is we do create language and vernacular that make it easier to talk about business value. I feel like your point about architects that have MBAs, traditionally architects have come from understanding technology, but often that's in a silo, right? Or that's solely constrained based on the technology that you work with and the use cases that you've delivered.
Right.
And so you're really deep in technology, but you're not as deep in understanding business needs. And so this is why we emphasize this within the program and the way that we talk about solution architects today. I think it's critical because if you can't describe or if you can't articulate or measure what it is that customers need today, how do you know what to build?
Right. And something I kept hearing was, I'm trying to remember the exact phrase somebody used, but like to knowingly implement something that was inferior because the costs of doing the superior version is simply not worth the outcome to the customer.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. And I think this gets to one of the other leaderships, the other types of leadership that solution architects practice, right? And this is delivery leadership, the ability to make those trade-offs or measure the inputs that lead to those kinds of decisions, right? Where you can then clearly articulate, hey, ideally we would do this, but because of whatever the constraints are, your timeline, your opportunity window, we're going to make a choice to do it this way. Here's the debt that we're going to create. Right. We're going to be mindful of that, but understand that is part of the cost of, getting you to be successful.
Right. And that was the phrase. I think it was intentional debt, because like me as a developer, all technical debt sounds bad. But when you take it one layer above, there may be that fraction of the debt that's actually in a way kind of useful to you.
I am working on a side project right now for our program, and I am struggling with myself over wanting to maintain 100% test coverage. So that is exactly what, right?
Yes, exactly.
That is exactly it. I was like, no, I will lose. I will sleep 2 hours less. Let me just keep my 3-digit test coverage in place. I'll sleep much better knowing that it's 100.
Exactly. Okay. So let's bring it back to the program a little bit more. Let's give the elevator pitch for the B2C Architecture Certification. Like, what does it cover? And I think you touched on this a little bit, but why did Salesforce feel like this had to be implemented?
Well, all right. So this is great. When I think about our value proposition at Salesforce, we are a digital platform, the world's leading digital platform where customers can create frictionless experiences for their consumers in less time with the broadest capabilities to generate value for their organization faster, quicker, and better than any place else, right? And so in order to do that, you have to have an understanding of the different platforms that Salesforce has, the different products, what those features are, how these features work together, what the underlying data strategy is for customer data, as well as engagement data, and how to orchestrate and leverage all this to produce the outcomes that you are seeking. And so this is what our program does. Our program enables partners and customers seeking to enter a path or a career journey as an architect to be able to do those things. When one of the pieces of the language that I love when we talk about customer experiences is we talk about seamless customer experiences or frictionless customer experiences, right? Now, this is hard.
Yeah.
It's easy to connect things, but it's really hard to make things seamless and elegant.
Yeah.
And because you have to understand the data strategy, you have to understand the constraints of each platform, as well as the approach or different approaches to take to create that seamless experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so within our program, these are the things that we teach and emphasize and focus primarily on how to do that with 3 core products: B2C commerce, marketing cloud, as well as the Salesforce platform, but
Mm-hmm.
then also how to leverage the supporting products like Customer 360 Data Manager, MuleSoft connectors, as well as Heroku and some of the single source of truth products now, 360 audiences,
Mm-hmm.
identity, privacy center, and such.
Yes. And I did actually have a follow-up question asking about like how many different clouds can we get into a single solution? And I think you just listed at least 99% of them. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I feel like this is one of the challenges, but it's also one of the tremendous opportunities
Mm-hmm.
For companies with our platform, is that we have a crazy collection of capabilities that you can
Mm-hmm.
leverage, right? Whether you're a small business or whether you're, a Fortune 100 company.
Yeah. Totally agree. I do also feel like that commerce has kind of, the Salesforce platform has this too. Like I've run into developers who simply have never become acquainted with features because their job never gave them an excuse to like try to leverage them. And I feel like commerce development, and I guess architecture as well, has a kind of a unique thing in that it's something that you don't learn until you have to, but once you have to, you're probably up against a very complicated and difficult solution. Do you have advice around that, and does like the training around the certification kind of help that gap?
Well, so I have both. All right. So let me start with the training around the certification.
Yeah.
If you're a partner, what we have is a curriculum and partner learning camp. Tony Vaughn, I'm looking at you. Tony leads the Partner Learning Camp Center of Excellence team. And
Gotcha.
So we partnered with his team to develop a 26-course curriculum that's available for partners today. They can go to the partner community and Partner Learning Camp and look up our curriculum, B2C Solution Architect. One of the things that we've done with our curriculum is made it given it a lot of optionality. And by that, I mean, if you think about consultants today, it's exactly the scenario you described, right? Yeah. Where it's not that I have a linear learning path on how to grow my career. It's that I have to react to the needs of what my client requires or what my firm requires me to do in order to sustain new business. Mm-hmm. And so it's very much hey, do you know how to implement Salesforce chat or Lightning Scheduler, or how to integrate with Einstein Analytics or Tableau CRM, I should say. And no, I don't, but okay, well, we have a meeting on Wednesday where we need to have a point of view on this. So do your work, but also figure out a way to bone up on this because I need you to be on this call.
Right. Go study up on this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so within our curriculum is very use case based, where if you want to learn how to implement marketing journeys, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you want to learn how to implement abandoned cart between B2C commerce and marketing cloud, or you want to learn how to implement Salesforce chat or leverage the MuleSoft connectors or build a single source of truth, we have independent courses on each of these topics. Gotcha. that provide the product introduction, explain constraints, inform you with a data strategy, as well as explain here's what a foundational phased approach would be to implementation. So gotcha. That within ideally 1 to 3 hours, you can at least have an informed conversation that's authentic with the customer, but there's also a longer tail learning journey that you can take as you go down the implementation or planning path to understand more about what's actually involved in making it real.
Nice. Yeah, it is, I think from both a developer and architect point of view, it is kind of this weird chasing the opportunity versus the opportunity coming after you sort of thing. And I had, back in my consulting days, I had a customer who was, I think to this day, my favorite group of people I ever worked with, because first of all, they would basically ring up model and be like, we just want to borrow Josh for like 3 days. And I would just be able to just take 3 days, go sit in their offices. And then all they really wanted to do was like brainstorm. And I swear to gosh, every time it was the craziest idea. It's just like, you guys bring me the weirdest thing that you're trying to develop. And I'm like, I would never have had like the ability to have that challenge. So it's great that we're able to present those things to it. And so it sounds like you're kind of offering an a la carte solution that can be pieced together depending on how complex you want your knowledge to be, kind of thing. Does that sound about right?
Definitely. One of the underpinnings or consistent threads in our program as well is this data strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about customer data and we think about different systems, I want to get to one of the, I think it was the pre-question to this topic,
Mm-hmm.
where it's hard to understand or it's hard to make time to learn new technologies, right?
Yeah.
And especially in a pinch. And as a result, I feel like we tend to look at everything similarly, right? So if I'm a B2C commerce developer, I'm developing largely in JavaScript, which means that Lightning Web Components are going to make sense to me, but I'm probably not going to choose to look at declarative technologies as a Salesforce platform, right? I'm probably going to rely on Apex because I might know Java or C# or Go, and, and a typed language makes more sense, or it feels more intuitive. Yeah. Right. A part of what we try to do with our program as well is create awareness, the other technologies that are available, and create a point of view that, listen, solutions on our platform don't need to be pro code, right? Gotcha. That you want to write code, but you want to write just enough code to empower the other users of the platform to be able to leverage that declaratively. Yeah. And so this is where we introduce things like external services or flow, and how you could, write a little invocable Apex instead of throwing everything in a trigger. Yeah. And I feel like the advances that the platform's made declaratively, like over the past year, really make it much easier to embrace that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So let's talk a little bit more specifics. And this is something I think you told me previously you're personally passionate about, and you just touched on, like data modeling around customer profiles. And one of the things as I was kind of reviewing the material you gave me that I found just almost fascinating was this distinction between modeling somebody as like a system specific profile versus, and I just love this phrase, like modeling them as a human. Like, talk to me a little bit about how that data modeling works and what are some of the advantages of making that distinction.
All right. So look, I really appreciate you asking this question. I'm smiling right now,
awesome.
Because this is, if there's one thing I want you to get from our podcast, it's what I'm about to share with you. All right. So when we think about these multi-cloud use cases, we think about seamless experiences. They all hinge on two things, right? The first is being able to identify your customer in their journey, regardless of where they are in their journey. And what that means is regardless of what platform they're in, right? So if I respond to a social ad, right? That social ad is coming typically from Marketing Cloud.
Yeah.
Right? I respond to it, that takes me to B2C commerce.
Yeah.
Right? And then if I complete a purchase, or if I'm in the middle of shopping and I initiate a chat with customer service, that chat is now owned in Service Cloud. And so here we have one seamless experience that is leveraging 3 different platforms. We need the ability to identify who the customer is with consistency and access their engagement data so that we can be in service to them, right? And this is the whole point about seamless and frictionless. This is so that as a customer service agent, I want to understand, hey, so what pages have you viewed on the storefront? What is in your cart? What products have you viewed? And maybe be able to generate recommendations, or maybe interact with your shopping cart and say, here's a coupon. Thank you for your time and patience. Right?
Yeah.
Within marketing, I want to understand what segments do you belong to? Are you a VIP or are you a new user? Have you registered or signed up for any of our campaigns? And then I want to be able to leverage all of that within B2C commerce, right? Because then I can personalize a shopping experience. So this is at the journey level, right? And this is how we generate transactional business value. This is how we get customers to convert. Customers are happy because they get the product they want with an experience that they love. Our customers are happy because they're able to grow their business. And they're able to do this through automation, minimizing the amount of manual intervention that's involved. Now, the other component, understanding who your customer is as a human. Josh, let me ask you a question. How many phones do you have?
I am literally staring at 2 right now.
All right. How many email addresses do you have?
3 main ones and probably 10 that use alternate aliases.
All right. So like this paints my other point, right? So when we think about identifying customers within their journey, it's typically through a single profile or a single contact point, right? It might be an email address, a phone number, a combination of the two, a user ID. When we talk about identifying a customer as a human being, though, it's across all of their contact points, right? It's like all the accounts that you use, all the anonymous orders that you place, all the registered orders that you place. If one of the key KPIs for an organization is total lifetime value, right?
Okay.
Most companies struggle to calculate this because in order to generate this number, this metric, you need to be able to roll up all of the interactions and engagement that a customer has produced across all of their profiles. And you can't just do this off of, let's say, a customer ID or an email address, right? Like company, household share email addresses. One of the very valid but example use cases is, you know what? My father is Abraham Lloyd and he moved in with me and he's sharing my email address. And so now he's buying things and I'm buying things.
Right.
And how do you tell who's what?
Right.
And so this is where Customer 360 Data Manager, 360 Audiences, these products, they really try to build the view of the human so that you can then leverage this to augment your transactional experiences.
Let me fall back a little bit. That metric you mentioned, total lifetime value, what exactly is that measuring?
So super simply, how valuable are you as a customer for the lifetime of our relationship? And I was looking at my Amazon account and last month we got 70 packages. It completely blew my mind. Right. And so it made me think, wow, what is my total lifetime value with Amazon?
Yeah.
Right? My mother-in-law was advocating that I sign up for an Amazon credit card because they have like a great cashback thing or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about it. But so think about, I want to understand how much given customer is spent with me. Right.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Now, Amazon makes it easy because in order to buy, you need to register and have an account.
Right.
But in e-commerce, probably 70% of all orders are placed through guest checkout, like 70 to 80, depending on who the retailer is, are placed through guest checkout. And so if you don't have an ID that you can attach the order to, then how do you aggregate and accrue and calculate total lifetime value in a trustworthy way? Right. And this is super strategic because if your total lifetime value is one of the things that will inform what your segmentation strategy is, right? This will help you say like, all right, so you're a new customer, you're a VIP, you're a repeat customer, you're an infrequent repeat customer and such. And that segmentation strategy then informs ad spend, that then informs the experiences that customers are put in. And each of those experiences need to be able to convert. And so if your segmentation's not right, then it'll be disproportionate, right?
Yeah.
In some cases, it'll be wrong. You'll be putting customers in experiences that aren't really suited for them. And so they're not going to convert. And then as a result, the ROI in that experience hurts. And at the end of the day, it just creates waste. And so if you can calculate total lifetime value correctly, everything else really begins to fall in place.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense to me, partially because back in my former life as a front end e-commerce developer, I can't even tell you how many meetings I was in where cart conversion was like the key thing we were trying to chase down.
Yes.
Right. Like, why did this person put 15 things into their cart and then walked away for 3 months kind of thing? So that's really interesting. So pulling it back. So let's talk a little bit more about Customer 360 Data Manager and Audience Manager. Like, give me the elevator pitch specifically for those two projects, and what do they do and what would they do for both developers and architects?
Okay, so to build these frictionless experiences, you need to be able to do the two things that I said. You have to be able to identify a customer consistently within their journey, right? And you can do that today with our data strategy. And then you also need to be able to identify who your customer is as a human being, right? And what this does is it requires resolution that is, machine learning driven, where you can define rules that say, hey, I want to be able to match on this criteria, but I also want, this system to also do all this other fuzzy magic, for lack of a better way of describing it, to give me a global profile that represents this customer, but also gives me visibility into all the different data sources that this data came from.
Gotcha.
Right. And as data changes, or as I get more data, I want to be able to curate that profile and, and mature it. So that way I can always have, what I believe to be trustworthy data. Yeah. And so Customer 360 Data Manager is what does that today for the Salesforce platform. I'm a huge fan. This is one of the things that's really exciting about this product is that it's a $0 SKU. So if you're a customer that, let's say, has multiple Salesforce orgs, right? And so here's a great example. I need to know who all of my contacts or person accounts are across these three orgs. And what I want to pull all the cases from those three orgs and make them available in one org, but I don't want to copy data. I just want the data to be accessible through federation, right? Like, I want to just build a custom Lightning web component or a custom app that displays this data. Data Manager empowers that through its resolution engine, which can build those global profiles, as well as through data federation service, which allows you to register multiple data sources and then access data across those data sources. You can also integrate with Customer 360 Data Manager, and they have some very exciting capabilities that I can speak about if I hashtag safe harbor, but I'm going to save those for the product team to do. All right.
Sounds like a wise plan. So if people are hearing this, they're interested, they want to learn more about the cert, maybe take the cert, where can they go?
All right. So guess what? We have a page for this.
Nice.
So if you go to trailhead.salesforce.com/credentials, what you'll see is the collection of roles or career roles that we support. One of those roles is the Salesforce Architect. If you click on the Salesforce Architect and scroll down, you'll get an overview of the different architect journeys. Now, Salesforce is a company, we have the certified technical architect, the application architect, system architect. We also have B2C commerce architect. We just introduced the B2C Solution Architect as well. And so from the architect credential section, if you click on B2C Solution Architect, it provides you insight into the prerequisites. There's a learning journey trail mix. There is also a study guide that we provide that's similar to all the other credential study guides that we provide. And so this is a great place if you want to learn more, if you want to learn about the prerequisites and you want to see what the study guide looks like, this is exactly where you should go.
And that's our show. Now, before we go, I did ask after Abraham's favorite non-technical hobby, and I am just going to warn you, this is a really cute one.
Oh, man. So this changes over time.
Okay.
But I have a 4-year-old daughter. All right. So I have a 4-year-old daughter and I have a 19-year-old son. Okay. And what I really love to do with her is play Scooby-Doo. Oh. Right. And so for Christmas, we got her Scooby-Doo and the Gang figures. So for my son, it was Star Wars, right? It was Star Wars and Transformers. Yeah. She has Scooby-Doo, so she's got the Mystery Machine, and there's Frank and Shaggy, and and everybody. And so I work a lot. I love what I do.
Yeah.
But if I want to unwind, I play Scooby-Doo with my daughter.
With your 4-year-old.
Yeah. And she has me talk the gang. So,
Okay.
Zoinks!
Oh my gosh. I think that might be the most adorable answer to that question that I've ever got. I want to thank Abraham for the great conversation and information. And of course, as always, I want to thank you for listening. Now, if you want to learn more about this show, head on over to developer.salesforce.com/podcast, where you can hear old episodes, see the show notes, and have links to your favorite podcast service. I'll talk to you next week.